Bonjour. Pour réaliser notre vision de l'innovation, la collaboration de tous les acteurs socio-économiques est essentielle. L'implantation des zones d'innovation, c'est un projet phare de notre gouvernement et surtout de notre premier ministre. C'est un projet pertinent pour le Québec, spécialement dans notre contexte de pandémie, car ils font partie intégrante de nos stratégies pour la relance de l'économie. Les zones d'innovation vont se déployer sur des territoires délimités où des acteurs de la recherche, de l'industrie et de l'entrepreneuriat vont se regrouper pour insuffler une culture d'innovation. Les zones seront des endroits stimulants pour mener des activités de recherche et de développement, de travailler avec d'importants donneurs d'ordre, de créer et d'accélérer la croissance des startups, tout en collaborant avec les partenaires publics. Tout ça, bien sûr, dans un environnement misant sur la qualité de vie et le bien-être, favorisant ainsi la collision des idées, la créativité et le travail collaboratif. Comme gouvernement, nos objectifs sont connus. Il faut continuer d'améliorer le passage de l'idée au marché, attirer plus d'investissements privés et étrangers et favoriser une croissance économique propre et durable partout au Québec. Un projet de zone d'innovation, ça doit émaner d'une collectivité et ça requiert d'importants efforts de réflexion, de concertation et de mobilisation. En appuyant de tels projets dans différentes régions du Québec, ce qu'on souhaite, c'est de développer des milieux connectés et attrayants pour les investissements et les entreprises. La bonne nouvelle, c'est qu'une quinzaine de projets de zone d'innovation ont été déposés à mon ministère. Ils font présentement l'objet d'un processus complet d'analyse et d'accompagnement qui implique plusieurs ministères et organismes. Les projets visent des secteurs d'activité en pleine croissance et des domaines technologiques de pointe comme l'intelligence artificielle, la santé, l'aérospatiale, les sciences quantiques, la mobilité durable et la cybersécurité, pour ne donner que ces exemples. On parle de nos secteurs structurants pour le Québec et bien adaptés à leurs territoires respectifs. L'innovation, c'est une longue chaîne. Nous devons renforcer chaque maillon. Nous travaillons actuellement à la création d'un nouvel organisme de valorisation de la recherche publique. Cet organisme, qui sera pleinement opérationnel dès le printemps, nous permettra de maximiser la portée économique et sociale des résultats de la recherche publique. Plusieurs solutions convergent donc pour faire du Québec l'une des sociétés les plus novatrices au monde. Je laisse maintenant la parole aux invités du panel et je vous remercie de participer à cette réflexion sur notre avenir économique. Bonne discussion.
Bonjour, mon nom est Mario Limoges, je suis sous-ministre adjoint au Ministère de l'Économie et de l'Innovation du gouvernement du Québec et mon secteur est responsable notamment de la mise en place des zones d'innovation au Québec, comme vient de le mentionner M. le ministre. Aujourd'hui, j'ai le bonheur et l'honneur d'animer ce panel concernant donc les zones d'innovation avec 4 distingués panélistes. Et je voudrais d'abord, évidemment, remercier le ministre Fitzgibbon pour son allocution d'ouverture à cet égard. Et je pense qu'il a bien mis la table parce qu'effectivement, au ministère de l'Économie et de l'Innovation du Québec, on a lancé ce projet-là, le concept des zones d'innovation, il y a maintenant environ, je dirais, 18 mois. Et avec un processus de coordination avec Investissement Québec, le scientifique en chef du Québec, plusieurs autres ministères. Et comme M. Fitzgibbon l'a mentionné, on est maintenant rendu à 16 et peut-être même 18 projets déposés. Alors donc, c'est avec enthousiasme que j'entame ce panel, cette discussion. Pour la discussion. So our panelists today are Mr. Thomas Osha. Mr. Osha is the chairman of the board of directors of the Global Institute on Innovation Districts and senior vice president, innovation and economic development for Wexford Science and Technology. Additionally, Tom serves as an innovation advisor to the Department of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, Canada, helping Canadian companies successfully expand their operations into the United States and assisting U.S. companies in developing Canadian partnerships and markets. He also serves as an advisor to the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, on global innovation, and the Brookings Institution for Innovation District Research and Measurement. Good morning, Tom. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, Mario. Thank you so much. And it's a pleasure to be here with all of you this morning. I wish it could be in person, and I know that we'll get to that day sometime soon. But if anything, I think what has happened with COVID has taught us a lot about the importance of place for innovation. The vaccine that is just rolling out across the world right now was the quickest vaccine ever from first patient of viral infection to first patient of vaccination throughout our history. And one of those reasons is that the world of innovation has changed. It's become one that is highly dependent upon clustering and making connections, both at a global scale, but also at a hyper-local scale. And so I'd like to spend a few moments talking about today the importance of these innovation districts for this kind of activity and the benefits that one can see in their own regions and in their own municipalities. An innovation district in and of itself is not about physical boundaries, and it's not about buildings. I've seen a number of districts. I see about 75 districts a year. I've seen a number of districts where they have beautiful buildings and those buildings are full, but the connections and the activity are lacking. The ground floor experience for pedestrians and users is lacking. And so what is it really about? Well, at the end of the day, it's about clustering companies together and making connections. In some ways, it's like wine, right? If you've seen one innovation district, you've seen one innovation district. Each district draws from the intellectual capital, the innovation, and the infrastructure of its anchor institutions, many times world-leading universities, academic medical centers, or other research institutions. It also takes the proximate and geographic advantages from its region and adds those in. And finally, it includes very much the authenticity, the inclusion, the diversity of its adjacent neighborhoods. And so a district that might be around artificial intelligence and machine learning in Montreal might be different than a district that is around ocean technologies in Halifax, might be different than one that is around medical and related sciences in Toronto. And certainly all of those might be different than what you would find in Beersheba, you would find in Sheffield in England, you would find in Boston in the United States, or Austin, Texas, or St. Louis, Missouri. And so for a moment, let's talk about the necessary elements of these districts. And I think I'll start, I know as a background, many of you had seen the paper that my colleague Julie Wagner and I had written around the May timeframe as a roadmap for recovery. And I think I'll just focus on the one point, and the top point was recognize that all districts are not created equal. And why is that? Well, it really is, since innovation districts became vogue, a number of municipalities, a number of political designations came out and said, we have a district too. In fact, Julie and I found in one city alone that the mayor had declared 50 innovation districts around the city. And this was not a terribly large city. And so it isn't necessarily a political or geographic boundary as much as it is the opportunity to create really a community, right? And in fact, most recently at the Global Institute on Innovation Districts, we have done in-depth research on 9 districts around the world, right? Districts in Pittsburgh, in Winston-Salem, in St. Louis, and in Buffalo in the United States, Sheffield in England, Beersheba, Melbourne, looking at Medellin, looking at what makes these districts really unique. We also, since COVID, have been regularly meeting with 25 other global districts, understanding their roles, how those roles may have changed, and trends that have accelerated. And finally, in my own company, Wexford Science and Technology, we have created over 1 million square meters of space with 25 different universities across North America to really focus on creating that environment where university research, clinical excellence, corporate engagement, entrepreneurial activity, and community inclusion all blend together. So in creating one of these districts, what do you really need to focus on for long-term sustainability? I've looked at a number of districts, and you might find that some look at town centers, lifestyle centers, and call those districts because they have housing, they have retail, and they may have an office building. Others look at the traditional suburban science parks and declare those innovation districts. Others may look at a medical district, right, that is dominated by a hospital or by clinical enterprise and declare that an innovation district. And really, what you need to focus on first is not as much what the physical place is, but what the unique specializations are, right? If you look across North America, there are probably 25 different cities that would declare themselves biotechnology or life science hubs. And that's wonderful that we have so much of that. But what is it that really makes you unique? Biotechnology is a wide range. So look at Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. What they decided to do was to actually declare cell and gene therapy what part of biotechnology they were going to specialize in. Why? Because they have a couple of brilliant professors in Dr. James Wilson and Carl June at the University of Pennsylvania. And the research that these gentlemen have done is magnetic to companies. And so Amicus Pharmaceuticals, that's very interested in orphan diseases, particularly Pompe disease, and that the research of James Wilson helps that company move forward, brought all of its R&D and located in a building right next door at 3675 Market next door to Dr. Wilson. And then new startup companies began to spring up around Amicus, like Cabaletta Pharmaceuticals. And what you started to find was you got this attraction of companies that were in cell and gene therapy. Today, there are over 50 cell and gene therapy companies in Philadelphia in roughly a 7-block radius. And then in those blocks are the kinds of labs for startups, the spaces for corporate giants like Roche or Eli Lilly or bioMérieux that want to be able to locate in proximity to the talent and to the innovation. It's also flavored with parks, beer gardens, cafes, walkable communities, opportunity for living, where all of this really mixes together. And so they stuck their stake in the ground and said, this is what we want to be able to do. Now, you can contrast that with what's happening on the other side of the country in somewhere like Sacramento, California, where they're looking at what they're doing in neuro, particularly in areas such as Alzheimer's and psych. And again, building an environment that has public scholarship and engagement, that works with the community, that has features a beautiful live, work, play, learn kind of community. But the science in the middle of it is entirely different. They've created this critical mass of elements. Quality place is kind of a given, right? North America has plenty of great architects and builders, but it's what these buildings are enabled to do. And then finally, it's the networks that are created. In COVID, if it's taught us anything, it's taught us that the ability to establish global networks, right, virtually as we're doing today, is now paired with this hyper-local ability for me to walk down the corridor and to perhaps bump into Mario over coffee or in a lounge, and for us to be able to engage one another in solving a problem or a new idea that happens to spring one of our research forth in a different kind of direction. And I'll leave you with this thought that if you think about these environments, they also need to create participation and inclusion for all. One of the things that the 2008 recession showed us was many times government interventions can actually exacerbate the wealth divide. the quantitative easing that the United States engaged in actually made our wealth disparities even worse. And so instead, what we need to make sure that we're doing is focusing on the opportunities to create pathways to jobs that require a variety of educational backgrounds. If you look in an innovation district, and particularly one that may happen to turn somewhat on an axis of technology and life sciences, you'll notice somewhere between 25 and 40% of those jobs don't require the traditional four-year degree. So how do you create pathways through the technical colleges, through the community college system, from the direct secondary schools, so that traditionally disenfranchised communities that may be sitting adjacent to these in places like West Baltimore, West Philadelphia, the South Side of Chicago, Oak Park in Sacramento, Overton in Miami, they can participate in the same way and have access to good, well-paying, sustainable jobs. Do these elements, specialization, critical mass, quality place, good networking and inclusion, and you'll have an innovation district that can be sustainable and a generator of economic benefit for your region and city. Thank you very much for including me. It's been a great conference so far yesterday. I look forward to a great week ahead.
Very good. Thank you, Thomas. Again, I just noted here that a few things here. We need long-term sustainability. We need every innovation district are specifics. You need specialization as well. We need to see what's going on after COVID, the economic recovery with innovation districts. We need also a variety of backgrounds, talents, the talented people, and they have not necessarily what we are used to have, like you said, I mean the four-year degree and everything. So this is very good. We'll come back on this. Je voudrais vous présenter maintenant Rémi Quirion. Bonjour Rémi. Rémi est notre scientifique en chef au Québec. Dr. Quirion chairs the board of directors of Quebec 3 research funds. He advises the Minister of Economy and Innovation on research and scientific development issues and is head of the Fonds de recherche du Québec. He was Vice Dean for Science and Strategic Initiative in the Faculty of Medicine at McGill University and Senior University Advisor on Health Sciences Research. Bonjour, Rémi.
Oui, bonjour à tous. C'est un plaisir d'être avec vous ce matin. Comme background, comme formation, j'ai une formation en neurosciences, en santé mentale. Donc, c'est peut-être ce qui m'a aidé là, à travailler au gouvernement, être capable de m'adapter, beaucoup de résilience avec des expertises en santé mentale. Quelques points que je voudrais faire ce matin, certains ont déjà été mentionnés par Thomas. First, the pandemic. I think the pandemic demonstrated to us all that science is key in this world, and that science and innovation are critical to the recovery. What we saw during the pandemic is a lot of open science all over the world. So you have a new virus. We know nothing about the virus. Well, the sequence is done. The virus is sequences, a genomic sequence. The Chinese scientists put it on the web so that everyone can see it. So then you sequence the virus in Italy or in the US or in Canada, and it's for everyone to see if there is difference. Same thing about trying to discover a new drug discovery. You have clinical trials that cover the landscape. It starts, for example, one started in Quebec, in Montreal, on colchicine, but then it opened to the rest of the world, with recruiting patients all over the world. So I think it showed that open science is a way to accelerate science, and hopefully we'll continue that after the pandemic. And as part of Innovation District, connecting district all over the world with their unique specificity also will be a way to accelerate discovery, to accelerate innovation. Here in Quebec, what the minister mentioned a few things, but we also just created a new position of innovator-in-chief. So to make sure that we have the whole chain. So of course I will work with that person, Luc Sirois, over the next few years, so that we have, yes, my job is more on the basic science, on the public science sector, but working very closely with the innovator-in-chief, working very closely with Investissement Québec, and I'm sure that we'll hear about that in a couple of minutes. So to have the full chain will be very important. Then in terms of my job, using science as a diplomatic tool, so science diplomacy. That's a buzzword these days. More and more governments are using that to open door. We could think of the Higgs boson a few years back. Who really care about the Higgs boson, except maybe physicists and astrophysics? But in the end, these type of very basic discovery are changing the world. And at CERN, you have scientists from all over the world that work side by side, from Palestine, from Israel, from Iran, from everywhere. So I think that's one of the beauty of science, open door and trying to focus less on political difference. Second point, key to innovation, key to science, of course, and I think Thomas mentioned that a little bit, is talent, brain. We can have great building, great cafe. If you have no brain, no talent, well, will not work. And artificial intelligence has not replaced human intelligence. So I think to make sure that we have great talent is absolutely essential. And talent could be, yes, a PhD, a postdoc, long, many years of expertise in the field, or it could be, as Thomas said, retraining people in their job so that we give them other opportunity. And it could be from high school, college, and university. So certainly talent is key, and talent is rare all over the world. So in the field like artificial intelligence, everyone is fighting for talent. We could think about quantum computing, will be huge also in terms of competition worldwide in the field. So one of the things that we have started to explore in Quebec, for example, with mine in Italy and with other colleagues in France, what about sharing talent? Instead of recruiting each other at high cost, maybe we could share. So basically we have back and forth. It's hard during the pandemic, but usually normally we'll be going back and forth, for example, from an expert in artificial intelligence, back and forth between Italy and Quebec, Canada, and having students that also shuttle between the two places. So basically sharing talent instead of always competing for talent. A key aspect of talent, of course, would be related to equity, diversity, and inclusion. So that's also a big one that we have to think more in the future, and I think the Innovation District should focus on that as well. And finally, my last point will be on changing the way we think about the economy and thinking about circular economy. And that's a way to revive economy, and in terms of the recovery post-pandemic and with the creation in Quebec of Innovation District, I think we should focus quite a bit on circular economy in relation to the Sustainable Development Goal of the United Nations. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, Rémi. Des notions très intéressantes, très importantes. J'en ai noté quelques-unes ici, notamment l'open science. Has to continue also after COVID. The science diplomacy, which est une notion donc de diplomatie scientifique. The collaborative research and talent attraction and sharing, which is a new concept, very interesting. Accelerate the commercialization of innovations. And finally, the circular economy. Alors, merci beaucoup, Rémi. Des notions très importantes, je pense qu'il faut prendre en compte avec le déploiement, le développement des projets de zones d'innovation au Québec et partout dans le monde d'ailleurs. Alors, j'ai le plaisir maintenant de vous présenter Sylvie Pinsonnault. Sylvie is the Senior Vice President, Strategies and Business Solutions at Investissement Québec. She has a great deal of experience and has held many positions at Investissement Québec, including Vice President of Venture Capital, Investment Funds, and Fiscal Measures, and Vice President of Strategic Initiative Advisory Services to the Management Committee. Alors, bonjour Sylvie, bienvenue à ce panel.
Bonjour Mario, ça me fait grand plaisir d'être avec vous aujourd'hui. Alors, je suis très contente parce que c'est un sujet, l'innovation, c'est un sujet qui me passionne, qui est vraiment une priorité, hein, on le sait, pour le gouvernement du Québec. Et avec les zones d'innovation, on a en main un outil qui est incroyable pour la relance économique de notre beau Québec. Alors, moi, je vais parler un petit peu si vous permettez, du fait qu'avec les zones d'innovation, ça va devenir vraiment un outil d'attraction d'investissements étrangers, un outil pour accroître les investissements locaux au Québec et un outil pour vraiment augmenter la compétitivité de nos entreprises. Because the way to make sure that we increase competitivity of our businesses is really focusing on innovation and focusing on increased productivity. And how we do that, we'll have to have talent. So creating these beautiful, amazing innovation zones in Quebec will foster talent, will foster creativity, and will make sure that we have the proper magnetic tools to attract foreign investments. Let's take an example. Rémi talked about quantum physics, quantum computing, and any other types of technology that will be there in the future. And let's imagine that we have this great zone where there are great worldwide renowned researchers in that unique field of expertise. It will attract local businesses. They will want to use these minds to increase their competitivity by going through innovation projects. They will want to be part of this community, and foreign companies will find it very attractive to establish subsidiaries in these districts to make sure they have access to these pool of talents and these pool of innovation products and services. So innovation zones, I think it's really something that will be key to the economic recovery. And we're really happy, like you mentioned, Mario, that on the table right now, there are many, many very interesting potential zones that will be created in Quebec. And all of them, what we've seen, Mario, I'm sure you will agree, have this special uniqueness in them that will make sure that it will become a magnet. And for me, if I can say, we've had in the past oil as like the end of the world. But oil today, our new oil is talent. And the way to attract talent will be through innovation, and the way to attract competitiveness of companies will be through innovation. So that's why innovation zones are really key for Quebec. I just want to, I know I don't have a lot of minutes, but I just wanted to make sure that I went with you through the launch of our new initiative called Productivité Innovation. We launched that big initiative across Quebec in September. And the objective is very simple. We want to increase competitiveness of companies by working on increasing productivity and increasing innovation. And you see the link here with innovation zones where IQ, Investissement Québec, will collaborate with the Ministry of Economic Development to set up proper innovation zone. But let's go back to the initiative itself. What we want to do is make sure that we fund projects in terms of either debt or equity to make sure that the innovation projects and any types of projects in terms of automation, robotics, do take form to help companies become more competitive. And also we have new experts at Investissement Québec that have joined forces with us to make sure that we support businesses in terms of making sure they have the proper expertise for becoming more digital, and also to help them export more. So we have in place some experts at Investissement Québec that can help businesses increase exports. We can make contacts for companies, local companies, to make sure that they increase their competitiveness to exports. And we have expertise in terms of digital transformation to make sure that companies are more productive and more automated and more innovative. So this big initiative will be key in the next 3 years. We have a goal. Our objective is to finance for more than $2.4 billion of projects, which is really the minimum level we are expecting. So it's going to be a large-scale initiative, and it will be really something complementary to the Innovation Zone Districts project handled by the Ministry of Economic Development. So I don't know if I've taken more minutes of my time. I apologize if I did, but a lot of elements to cover here. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup.
Voilà.
Merci beaucoup, Sylvie. Alors, encore une fois, des notions très intéressantes, comment les zones d'innovation peuvent engendrer donc une croissance au niveau des investissements directs étrangers et aussi, en même temps, comment faire en sorte que les investissements, même locaux, puissent être augmentés dans les zones d'innovation. La croissance, donc, des pôles de créativité qui font la croissance d'innovation, Innovation-Driven Projects, donc très intéressant. Et en même temps, donc, l'initiative dont Sylvie nous a parlé qui vise à faire en sorte donc que la compétitivité des entreprises soit rehaussée, par la numérisation notamment. Donc, 2,4 milliards, $0.4 billion initiative. Donc, très importante initiative pour l'accroissement de la compétitivité. Pour faire en sorte, donc, l'objectif ultime est d'accroître nos exportations notamment et la place donc de nos entreprises sur l'échiquier mondial. Alors, des notions très importantes donc qui vont de façon complémentaire, comme le mentionnait Sylvie, avec toute la notion donc de ce projet des zones d'innovation au Québec et les nombreux projets donc qui sont sur la table à dessin actuellement et qui ont été reçus. Rémi et Sylvie font partie du comité aviseur pour la désignation des zones d'innovation auprès du ministre. Alors, je les remercie grandement donc de leur implication. I will go now to our fourth speaker, Igor. How are you, Igor?
Fine, Mario.
Good.
Thank you.
So Igor is Chief Executive Director at Arexpo, which is a public organization that owns the Milano Innovation District that we call MIND. Igor was from 2010 to 2016. He worked at Philips SPA as sales manager for Italy, Israel, Greece, Malta, and Cyprus. And from 2017, he held the position of wholesale director for Europe, Middle East, and Africa at Moleskine until June 2019, when he was appointed as a CEO of Arexpo. So, Igor, good morning. How are you?
Yeah, very well. So, bonjour, Mario. Hello, everybody, and greetings from the Lombardy government and from the Italian government. So, thank you very much for inviting me and telling you our experience in Italy in growing innovation zone and in particular the Milano Innovation District. First of all, I would like to share with you some ideas. So we in Italy strongly believe that we are living in a world where cities, regions, and nations are in competition. Because they are willing to assure to their own people the possibility to grow, to the people, to the talent, to the companies. But at the same time, there is a hard competition in attracting talents, companies, capitals from other countries. And in the past, we were used to attract company and people usually through services. I remember the no-tax areas everywhere, especially in the Middle East. But today, in Lombardy and in Italy, we strongly believe that the new way of attracting talented companies are innovation zones. In particular, I'm responsible for the MIND project. We are a public company owning the area where we had the Expo 2015 in Milan. So it's a 1 million square meter area, and we are transforming it into an innovation district for life science and smart city technology. 70,000 people will live there. In 3 years from now, it will be ready and open. And the idea is that we want to create an ecosystem zone where public functions will work together with private companies in innovation ways. So the idea is that we want to have a zone, an area where 70,000 people will exchange their ideas and make a common step in innovation. We are going to have there the Human Technopole, which is the most important research institute in Italy, 1,200 researchers on genomics and DNA. We will have the Statale University of Milan, so 23,000 people, students and researchers, and we are going to have the new Galeazzi Hospital, which is a university hospital with hundreds of researchers. These researchers and the managers, the people of the private company working there will be structured in a formula we call the federated innovation that will help people to work together and make innovation together. So we strongly believe that innovation is something that will happen if people live in a common area, bring ideas all together. So it's impossible to make innovation by ourselves. On a second level, it's very important to put the mind into a global network of innovation district. My idea is that we are going to have a sort of, like the G30 for countries, we must have a sort of ID30, Innovation District 30. The most important innovation areas in the world must work together in order to exchange best practices, research program, talents, startup, capitals. And we have signed last week a protocol with the University of the Emirates in Dubai and their Science and Innovation Park. You know, we are discussing a lot with the Quebec as well, and we are close to signing an agreement in order to exchange ideas, programs, talent. But just to be very pragmatic, one idea I have in mind, and we are discussing with the Quebec government, is a sort of federation of biobanks. So Lombardy has a federation of biobanks. I know that Quebec has a sort of federation of biobanks. Why not putting all the data together to make research together? So we have this big opportunity that now digital and technology can let us work together, even if we are divided by the Atlantic, but we can do that. So my idea is that we must create a network of innovation district that will bring social improvement, economic and business improvement in the local area, but will bring positive effects all around the world. So I really believe that in the future, I hope we will not have to discuss about the social distancing, but making innovation together. So that's the future I hope and I dream.
Thank you, Igor. It's something very, fabulous what you're saying about it. You're starting really from scratch. This place there, you're building upon Arexpo was. Tell us a little bit what was there prior to MIND.
Before MIND, there was just a green field that we used to make the Expo 2015, and after Expo 2015, I have to tell you this is the first time that after this kind of universal exposition, the land is regenerated into something very attractive, like an innovation district. Because before, usually countries have not been able to transform it into something very, very useful for the country. And I'm very proud about that. The next Expo in Dubai, they are going to copy and paste our model. So the MIND model after Expo is something that Dubai will do with Discrete 2020, and I'm very proud of that.
So MIND is a project over 20 years, 10 years, 100 years?
Let's say MIND is a project that it will be ready in 3-4 years from now, but it's a 100 years project because we are building it through a public-private partnership. So we will remain the owner of the land, but we have a private partner, which is the developer, which is Lendlease. So we are working together.
So a lot of people will work and live there. As we see that with Human Technopole University, 23,000 students, the life science, 7,000 people in 3 years. So lots of people in something that was empty just 3 years ago.
Yeah, and that's incredible. And I'm asking myself a lot of times why such a lot of companies are coming to mind, and the answer is very simple, because this ecosystem of innovation is built on two vertical pillars: life science, as I said, and technology, smart city, which are industrial segments where Milano and Lombardy are excellent in Europe. So companies from all the world are coming to mind because they know that there is a territory very strong and an ecosystem of innovation which is very interesting, because what they can do in mind with other private companies and the public functions is something that they can't do elsewhere. So my suggestion for your program, which I believe is very important, and it's more or less similar of our ideas in Italy, is that ecosystem of innovation can grow if they are built on industrial sectors where the territory is already strong. Otherwise, they can't work. I'm not confident that they can really be a success like if they are built on a territory very strong in that industrial sectors.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Igor. We're very proud, and we like to share ideas and best practices with you. And we know that you are a pillar also in the Europe ecosystem over there, so we're very proud to be a part of that. We had a question here from the audience, and it's open question, so maybe any of the panelists could answer that. Is there a risk that too many companies are when they...
Mario, on t'a pas entendu.
I think j'ai perdu la connexion pendant un bout de temps, je m'excuse. There was a question from the audience. Is there a risk if we have too many companies that are concentrated in an area like an innovation district, for example, like if something happened to a sector of the sector of the businesses, or something happened to the area? What do you think about that, Igor?
Mario, I don't believe this is an issue, because when you create an innovation area, usually you are attracting companies, talents from all over the world. So for a country which is leveraging on this kind of system, I don't see this issue. And usually it's also a way to regenerate the urban area, and not just in the innovation district, but also around. So for mine, this is what it's happening. So we are not just regenerating the previous Expo area, the 1 million square meter, but all around the surroundings, the neighborhoods are improving themselves thanks to this innovation district. So I don't believe it's a problem. It's an opportunity.
Okay, good. Tom, maybe, do you see any problems with that concentration?
No, I agree with Igor. In fact, if you look at the radius of improvement in St. Louis, Missouri, about $500 million were invested in what was called Cortex, their innovation district. Today, $850 additional million have been around it. And what you find is with the density of those companies, they're able to pivot. As markets change, as opportunities come about, they're able actually as a group to navigate probably better than if a company was isolated away from its supply chain and even its competitive set.
Yeah, right. And I've got a question for you. And, because of the COVID, because of the distanciation we have to implement now, We are talking of concentration. We are kind of talking about innovation district that are many, many people in an area, a small area. What do you think of the after COVID distanciation, and how will it affect the innovation district concept? What do you think about that? Maybe Rémi.
Well, maybe I'll let the expert talk about that, like Igor and Thomas, Sylvie. Okay. But I think certainly we have to rethink downtown area for sure. That's something that the city of Montreal, for example, they have a lot of activity in that regard now.
Sure.
Wait, okay, there was something that we discussed with Igor, if you remember, Mario. And I remember you asking that question, and the answer was pretty, I would say, creative in the sense that, and I'll let Igor answer it, but he did say something to the effect that people will want to be part of this community, will want to go there because their living conditions will be better in terms of air, in terms of having access to facilities, et cetera, I thought was very innovative in terms of this approach. Maybe, Igor, you could compliment, because I remember clearly your great answer to that question.
Yeah, thank you, Sylvie. Mine will be, half of it will be parks and channels and rivers. And we are going to have a common ground all around the area. So all the ground floor of all the buildings will be free. So people can have the opportunity to exchange ideas and start innovation, because innovation sometimes starts really with two people not knowing each other and start talking after works. So the idea is that we are going to create an area where people would like to come and live, because it's beautiful. There is fresh air. There are rivers, channels, the opportunity to stay with other people and enjoying not just the working time, but also the rest of the time. So that's the point. And I strongly believe that 2 years from now, 3 years from now, we'll not discuss anymore about social distancing. I'm confident about the possibility for us as human beings to solve the issue and go farther. So I'm very optimistic about that. It will take 1 year, 2 years, I don't know, but there will be a future, and we can come back to stay together and enjoying life.
So we had another question also from the audience regarding the incentives. Should we have incentives for companies or talents or, wage, things like that, to have the companies coming into a district, innovation district? Par exemple, ici au Québec, on regarde dans le moment essayer de faire un environnement d'investissement avantageux lorsqu'il y aura des zones d'innovation. Donc, faire en sorte que ça puisse être intéressant, puis que peut-être que le retour sur l'investissement va être plus rapide pour ces entreprises-là, du fait qu'ils vont être dans un milieu de commercialisation de l'innovation, et ainsi de suite. But what do you think about that? Should we have incentives as governments or, the promoters, for example, for companies to be located or to come and invest into a innovation district?
Mario, I can tell you our experience. I would not suggest to give fiscal helps, because they are such a sort of a drug. Once you finish giving that, maybe you will have a sort of reaction about people going abroad. But I believe that the most important thing is simplifying the life of people, of companies you want to attract. Because people coming from abroad need a home, need work from the families, need schools for their pupils. So there are a lot of things that you can do in order to simplify life. But I would not suggest to use the fiscal instrument. It's a sort of risk.
The one area where perhaps an incentive might be helpful is actually to level a playing field so that there is more participation. So for example, let's use quantum computing, right? If you're establishing a center of quantum computing, right, you're going to need a lot of bandwidth. the companies, the large companies, are well able to participate and as Igor says, have plenty of capital. But if you were to use a little bit of government subsidy or incentive, what you could take is make some of that bandwidth available to a disenfranchised local community to help address things like the digital divide. So in those areas, I think governments can help, perhaps to increase participation, but I am fully in agreement that just to incentivize companies to relocate from city to city it's a zero. You won't win that game.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Yeah, for sure. So more than that, we should go for the environment, or a favorable environment for the companies to invest and be.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Do we have more questions from we're being told that time is up. So I just though it was a very, very interesting discussion talk here. Thank you to my panelists. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Sylvie. Thank you, Rémi. Thank you, Igor. And thank you to all the audience that was there. I think it was very interesting, and we are all looking forward to after COVID recovery and innovation district, what they will bring to us. Thank you very much to all.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup.